Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. It was just supposed to be a casual office party, something to unwind after a long year of hard work. My husband, Steve, had been looking forward to it for weeks. He talked about it constantly, saying it would be a great way to catch up with his colleagues and relax in a way that didn't involve the usual work stress. I wasn't particularly excited, to be honest. Office parties have always had a certain, forced cheerfulness to them. People who barely talk to you during the week suddenly become the life of the party. But Steve was so enthusiastic, I figured it was worth going to, if only to support him. The party was held at a nice venue, one of those places with low, ambient lighting, soft jazz playing in the background, and tables filled with appetizers that looked way fancier than they needed to be. There were a few familiar faces, but most of the people there were Steve's colleagues, some of whom I'd only met once or twice. I stood quietly at his side, making small talk with people, trying to stay out of the limelight. That was when I noticed her. Her name was Carla, and I'd heard Steve mention her a couple of times. She was in her late 30s, tall, with long dark hair and a presence that made her hard to ignore. She was one of those women who just drew attention. And if I'm being honest, I noticed that she seemed to be hovering a little too close to Steve, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, touching his arm a little too often when they spoke. I don't know why, but something about it didn't sit right with me. But it wasn't until later in the evening that I understood why. As the night wore on, I found myself retreating to a quiet corner of the room, nursing my glass of wine and people-watching. It was peaceful there, and I could almost forget about the energy of the party for a moment. I was beginning to relax when I felt a presence beside me. I turned and saw Carla standing there, her drink in hand, smiling warmly. "Hi, Mary," she said, her voice smooth. "I hope you're enjoying yourself." Her smile was almost too perfect, too practiced. It felt like she was putting on an act, but I didn't say anything. I returned a polite smile. "I'm doing all right," I replied, trying to sound casual. "It's a nice place. The food's good." She chuckled softly, her eyes glancing toward Steve, who was standing across the room, deep in conversation with some of his colleagues. "Steve's great, isn't he?" Carla said. "He's always so easy to talk to. It's no wonder everyone at work loves him." I nodded, trying not to let my discomfort show. "Yeah, he's a great guy. We've been together for a long time." Carla's eyes lingered on Steve for a moment before she turned back to me. "You two make a great couple. He's lucky to have you." Her voice dropped a little, as though she were sharing a secret. "You're very graceful, Mary. And Steve, he's definitely a good man. But sometimes we all need a little excitement, don't we?" There it was. The subtle tension in her words, the slight implication that something more was going on. My heart skipped a beat. What was she getting at? Before I could respond, Carla's phone rang, and she excused herself, saying she needed to take the call. As she walked away, I couldn't help but feel a knot forming in my stomach. The air suddenly felt thicker, heavier, and my mind began racing with all the possibilities of what she had meant. But I pushed it aside. It was probably nothing. She was just being friendly. I tried to focus on the rest of the evening, but the thought of Carla and Steve kept nagging at me. The way she spoke to him, the way she looked at him, it was like she saw something I didn't. I shook the feeling off and went to find Steve. He was still talking to some of his colleagues when I approached, but when he saw me, his face lit up with that familiar smile. It always made me feel safe, like everything in the world was just as it should be. But tonight, something felt off. I was glad when the evening finally started winding down, people saying their goodbyes, slowly making their way toward the exits. Steve and I headed to the car, both of us tired but in good spirits. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I glanced at Steve, trying to read his expression. "So how was the party?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "It was good," he said, his hands resting on the steering wheel, his voice relaxed. "Carla was really fun to talk to. She's got a lot of energy, don't you think?" I smiled, though it felt more like a reflex than genuine happiness. Yeah, she's something. Steve chuckled, not catching the underlying tension in my voice. I think she likes you, Mary. She said you were classy. I felt my stomach tighten. Did she? Yeah, she's really nice, Steve said. It's rare to find someone so easygoing in the office. She's got this natural way of making people feel comfortable. The words hung in the air, and I realized that maybe I wasn't the only one who noticed Carla's attention. The night had left me feeling uneasy, like I was standing on the edge of something I didn't fully understand. What was going on between Carla and Steve? Was there something more to it than I was seeing? The days after the office party passed in a blur. Steve and I went about our usual routine. He'd go to work, and I'd handle things at home. But something inside me had shifted. I couldn't stop thinking about Carla. Every time I saw Steve laughing or talking to someone, a part of me wondered if she was involved somehow. I tried to shake the thoughts away, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But the doubt lingered. It wasn't until a week later that things came to a head. I was on the phone with my sister, catching up on life as we always did when Steve's phone buzzed on the counter. I had been walking through the kitchen when I noticed it, the bright screen showing a message preview from an unknown number. My curiosity got the best of me, and I walked over to see what it said. The message was from Carla. Hey, Steve. I know this might be a little forward, but I really enjoyed our conversation the other night. Let's catch up soon, just the two of us. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The words were innocent enough, but there was a clear undertone that made my heart race. What was going on? Why was she reaching out to Steve like that? Why wasn't it a group thing or a more casual message? My mind started spinning. I couldn't help but wonder. Was she trying to get closer to him? And what about the way she had acted at the party? Was I just overthinking everything, or had she been flirting with him all along? I stood there for a few moments, trying to steady my nerves. I knew I needed to confront Steve, but I wasn't sure how to go about it without sounding like I was accusing him of something he hadn't done. I didn't want to start a fight, but I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. Taking a deep breath, I picked up his phone and read the message one more time. Then I sent a quick reply to Carla from his phone, hoping it would buy me some time. Hey, Carla. Thanks for the message. Steve's really busy with work, but I'll let him know you reached out. Hope you're doing well. I hit send and placed the phone back down, just as Steve walked into the kitchen. He glanced at me, his expression soft and unsuspecting. Hey, you okay? He asked, his voice kind and a little curious. I smiled, trying to act normal. Yeah, just checking something on your phone. Everything's fine. He nodded but raised an eyebrow. You're sure? You don't look so sure. I hesitated. This was it. The moment I had to decide if I wanted to confront him or bury my feelings and pretend everything was okay. I saw Carla's message. I said, my voice quieter than I intended. She said she wanted to catch up with you. Steve looked momentarily confused. What do you mean? She sent me a message? Yes, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. It was just a casual invitation, but it seemed a little more than that. There was a long silence. I could see the wheels turning in Steve's head as he processed what I'd said. Finally, he sighed and walked over to me, gently taking my hands in his. Mary, I had no idea you were feeling this way, he said, his voice soft but earnest. Carla and I are just friends, I promise you. She's a little forward sometimes, but there's nothing going on between us. I didn't realize it was making you uncomfortable. I stared at him for a moment, trying to read his expression. Was he being genuine? Or was this just a well-practiced excuse? Then why didn't you tell me about the message? I asked, trying not to sound accusing but failing a little. I didn't think it was a big deal, Steve admitted. She's always been a little more outgoing than most people in the office. I didn't want you to think I was hiding anything, though. But after seeing your reaction, I realize I should have been more upfront about it. I wanted to believe him. I really did. but a part of me still felt unsettled, like something wasn't quite right. "I just don't want to feel like I'm being ignored or left out," I confessed, the vulnerability creeping into my voice. "It's like she's trying to get closer to you, Steve. And I don't know if I trust her intentions. I know you're a good man, but—" I trailed off, unsure of what I was even trying to say. It wasn't like I thought Steve was cheating on me, but the thought of Carla insinuating herself into our lives felt too familiar, too unnerving. Steve squeezed my hands, his gaze softening. "Mary, I love you. I only want to be with you. Carla is just a colleague, and I honestly didn't think it was a big deal. But if it's making you uncomfortable, I'll handle it. I'll make sure she knows there's nothing beyond friendship from me." I studied him for a moment, looking for any sign of insincerity, but all I saw was the man I married, the man I knew. The doubt in my heart began to ebb away, and I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said quietly, still unsure but willing to trust him. "I just don't want to feel like I'm losing you." Steve smiled and pulled me into a hug. "You're not losing me, Mary. You'll never lose me." But deep down, a part of me wondered if there was more to Carla's intentions than either Steve or I realized. The message was one thing, but how would things unfold from here? The next few days were strangely calm. Steve made an effort to keep me in the loop more, letting me know when Carla or anyone else from the office reached out to him. It helped, but the uneasy feeling never quite left. My mind kept playing back that night at the office party, the way Carla looked at Steve, the way she seemed to linger just a little longer than necessary. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something I wasn't seeing. It was the following Friday when the real test came. Steve and I had made plans to spend the evening at home, a quiet night in, just the two of us. But as I was preparing dinner, his phone buzzed again. I glanced over, my heart skipping a beat when I saw Carla's name flash on the screen. This time, it wasn't just a casual message, it was a photo. Steve had left his phone on the counter, and my curiosity got the best of me. I walked over and picked it up, unable to ignore the pull of suspicion. The photo was of Carla, taken at a cafe. She was smiling widely, looking carefree and happy. But that wasn't what caught my attention. What stood out was the message accompanying the photo. "Just had a coffee, and it reminded me of that night at the party. Would love to do it again sometime, maybe without the crowds next time." I felt a chill run through me. My first instinct was to drop the phone, but I couldn't. Something about that message, the underlying suggestion, made my stomach twist. I wasn't imagining it. She was trying to make her move. I took a breath and placed the phone back down before Steve could walk in. I didn't know how to approach him. Would he see it the way I did? Or was I just overreacting again? When Steve came in from the living room, I was still standing by the counter, trying to compose myself. He looked at me, and I knew the moment I saw his face that something had shifted. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern in his voice as he noticed the tension in the room. I nodded, but it wasn't convincing. I felt my chest tighten. "I saw Carla's message," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. Steve's expression flickered, and then he sighed. "Mary, Steve," I interrupted, my voice trembling slightly. "This is more than just friendly messages, isn't it? I saw her message, and it wasn't just casual. She's trying to get closer to you." Steve stepped closer, a deep frown forming. "Mary, I swear, she's just a colleague. There's nothing happening. You're reading too much into this." But the words felt hollow. I could see the frustration in his eyes, but I wasn't sure anymore if it was frustration at me or at the situation. "Steve, it's not just a message anymore," I said, my voice quieter but firm. "It's the way she acts around you, the way she reaches out. I'm not blind, you know. It feels like she's pushing boundaries, and I don't think I can just ignore it anymore." He was silent for a long moment, and the silence in the room was deafening. Finally, Steve let out a long breath and rubbed his forehead. "I know I haven't been the best at keeping things transparent with you. I didn't think anything of it because she's always been a little forward. But I see now how much it's bothering you, and I need to fix that. I promise, I'll talk to her. Make it clear that it's inappropriate. There was a part of me that wanted to believe him. But there was another part of me, the one that had seen Carla's subtle advances firsthand, that wasn't so sure. I just need you to be honest with me, Steve, I said, feeling the weight of my own emotions pressing down on me. I don't want to feel like I'm being played for a fool. I'm not trying to play you, Mary, he said, his voice softer now, the anger gone. I don't want to lose you over this. I'll talk to Carla and make sure she knows her place. You're the only one I care about. I looked into his eyes, searching for something. Reassurance, sincerity, anything. And for a brief moment, I found it. I could see the man I married, the man who had promised me his loyalty. But even as I saw that, a part of me was still uncertain. Could I truly trust him? Or was there something more beneath the surface? We spent the rest of the evening quietly, but the tension between us hadn't fully lifted. I knew Steve was trying, but my mind kept returning to Carla's message. What did it mean? And how far was she willing to go? The next morning after breakfast, Steve left for work, his usual routine. But as he walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of unease. I couldn't help but wonder if I had missed something. If there was more to this than I realized. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I wasn't going to sit back and wait for answers. I needed to know what was going on with Carla, and I needed to hear it from her. The days that followed were tense, but I knew I had to take control of the situation. I couldn't let doubt eat at me any longer. I needed to talk to Carla myself, clear the air, confront her head-on. I wasn't sure how exactly I was going to approach it, but something deep inside told me it was the right thing to do. By the time Steve left for work on Monday, I had made up my mind. I had to speak with Carla. There was no other way to resolve the feeling of unease that had taken root in my heart. I reached out to her. My message was simple, direct. Hi, Carla, I was hoping we could talk. I've been feeling a bit uncomfortable with the way things have been between us lately. Would you be open to meeting up? The reply came almost instantly, and I could sense her readiness to meet. She agreed to meet me at a cafe nearby. Nothing fancy, just a quiet corner where we could have an honest conversation. I felt a wave of nervousness wash over me as I got dressed and prepared to leave. This wasn't going to be easy, but I knew I had to do it for the sake of my marriage. When I arrived at the cafe, Carla was already there, seated at a table by the window. She looked relaxed, sipping on a coffee and scrolling through her phone, her expression calm. But as soon as she saw me, she put her phone down and gave me a polite smile, which didn't quite reach her eyes. Mary, hi. I wasn't sure if you were going to show up, she said, her tone light, almost playful. I sat down across from her, trying to steady my nerves. I wasn't sure if I should either, I replied, looking her directly in the eye. But I needed to talk to you. About everything. Carla's smile faded slightly, and she leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. I'm not sure what you mean. Is this about Steve? Yes, it's about Steve, I said, my voice steady, but filled with the weight of everything that had been bothering me. I don't know what's been going on between you two, but the way you've been reaching out to him, it doesn't sit right with me. She raised an eyebrow, but didn't interrupt. I took a deep breath and continued, feeling a sense of urgency now. I know we've never really talked much, but I can't ignore the messages. The way you've been, trying to get closer to him, it feels inappropriate. Carla's eyes softened a little, but there was a flicker of something behind them, something I couldn't quite place. I see, she said quietly. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. That was never my intention. For a moment, I was thrown off. I had expected her to be defensive, to deny it or dismiss my feelings. But instead, she seemed almost apologetic. Then why did you send him that message after the party? I pressed, my heart racing. You said you wanted to meet up, just the two of you. It didn't seem casual. Carla looked down at her coffee for a moment, then met my gaze again, this time with a quiet sincerity. I'm not going to lie to you, Mary, she began, her voice softer now. I did enjoy talking to Steve at the party. He's kind, he listens, but I've never had any intention of breaking up your marriage. I respect that he's with you, and I can see how much you love each other. I should have known better than to blur the lines." I sat back in my chair, the weight of her words sinking in. Part of me wanted to be angry, but the other part of me felt relief. She was being honest with me, something I hadn't expected. "I never meant to cause any trouble," she continued. "I don't want to be the reason for any doubt between you and Steve. If I've crossed any boundaries, I truly apologize. It's just, sometimes, it's easy to forget that people in happy marriages are off limits. I'm sorry for not respecting that." I was silent for a moment, processing what she had said. It was an unexpected confession, one that I wasn't sure how to handle. Carla wasn't the villain I had painted her to be. She wasn't trying to steal Steve away from me. She had just let herself get a little too caught up in the attention he gave her. "Thank you for being honest with me," I said at last, my voice quieter than before. "I appreciate it, and I'm sorry for jumping to conclusions." Carla gave me a small smile. "I understand. It's natural to feel protective of what's yours. And Steve is a good guy. He's lucky to have someone like you." I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my chest. There was still a lingering sense of unease, but it wasn't about Carla anymore. It was about me and Steve, and how we needed to rebuild our trust. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was possible. As I left the cafe, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing. I needed to trust Steve. If I didn't, I would never be able to move forward. The conversation with Carla had helped, but now it was time to focus on my marriage. To focus on us. When I got home later that evening, Steve was already there, sitting on the couch, waiting for me. He looked up as I walked in, his expression cautious but hopeful. "How did it go?" he asked quietly. I sat down beside him, taking a deep breath. We talked, and she was honest with me. "There's nothing between you two, Steve. But I need to trust you more, and I need you to be more open with me." Steve nodded, a look of relief crossing his face. "I can do that. I'll be better, I promise. I don't want to lose you over something so small." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I don't want to lose you either." We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation hanging between us. But this time, it felt different. It felt like we were both ready to move forward, to put the past behind us and focus on rebuilding what we had. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it.